You BAMF into existence somewhere in a New York City hospital. And congratulations, you're a mutant. A nurse lifts you from the delivery table, and you vanish out of her hands, reappearing across the room in a burst of smoke and a crack of displaced air that makes everyone in the room jump back. You land hard on the tile floor with your back hitting first, and before anyone can move toward you, you BAMF again, this time sideways through a wall cavity, your tiny body wedging into the gap between drywall and insulation with the solid material pressing in on both sides. The wall doesn't give way, so your power fires again automatically, pushing you back out the way you came and dropping you onto the floor a second time. Your mother reaches her arms out towards you from the delivery bed, so a nurse carries you back over. But the moment her hands wrap around you, you take her with you, both of you vanishing and reappearing in the corridor outside, with the nurse landing on her knees and you rolling across the floor. She lets go immediately, and you BAMF one more time without anyone touching you, landing inside a supply closet with shelves of folded towels around you. A moment later, the door opens, and a doctor crouches down slowly, keeping his hands at his sides and not reaching for you. He stays still, watching you from the doorway. You stay still too, because there is nothing else you can do. You are 3 hours old. By the time your parents are allowed back near you, 2 men in matching jackets are standing outside the room with a metal case between them, and neither of them is from the hospital. You don't know what SHIELD is yet, but they already know what you are. You're 5 years old now, and the apartment your parents moved into after the hospital has padded corners on every piece of furniture and rubber mats across every floor, because the last time you tripped on something hard, you BAMFed through the ceiling and landed on the roof. Your parents have learned to wear thin rubber gloves when they hold your hand, because skin contact during a jump pulls whoever is touching you through, with you. And the last time your father grabbed your bare wrist during a bad jump, he ended up inside the building's water tank, with his shoes still on the hallway floor. So the gloves stay on, and you've stopped reaching for people without warning them first. Then school starts. Your parents find a program across the city for young mutants, and on the first day, you sit next to a girl named Rosa, who can pull metal objects toward her hands without touching them. She reaches out and takes your hand before you can tell her about the gloves, so you both vanish at the same time and reappear on the school roof with a crack of displaced air. Rosa, still with her fingers wrapped around yours, and both of you looking out over the street below. She lets go of your hand, looks around at the rooftop, and then looks back at you with her mouth open. She thinks it is the greatest thing she has ever seen. But you know something she doesn't. You didn't choose the roof. You just panicked and jumped, and the roof happened to be somewhere you had looked at through the window that morning. So that is where you both ended up. If you had never seen the roof, you could have taken her anywhere, including somewhere you couldn't get back from. That's the thing about your power. It can take other people with you, and right now, that is more dangerous than useful. Skip forward a bit, and you're 12 years old now, and your range has grown without you doing anything to make it happen. Back at 5, a panicked jump carried you maybe 30 feet. Now, the same panic carries you 2 miles, and the problem is that 2 miles in any direction in New York City means walls, floors, ceilings, and steel, and your power does not move solid objects out of the way when you arrive. It only displaces liquids and gases, so if there is a wall where you land, the wall stays and you end up inside it. That's exactly what happens one afternoon when a dog charges at you from across a parking lot, making you jump without thinking, and you reappear inside a bus depot in Queens with your left leg wedged inside a door panel and your right arm clipping through the driver's seat. The bus doesn't move. You are the thing that has to give, so you fire another jump immediately and pull yourself free, landing on a rooftop 2 blocks away with both arms shaking from the force of pushing through. After that, you need to get the range back under control before it gets you killed, so you spend the next 3 months jumping only inside your apartment, practicing the same short hops over and over with furniture you can see and walls, until the distance starts to feel like something you can actually choose. But the range is only one part of the problem. Every single jump leaves behind a cloud of brimstone smoke and a crack of air rushing in to fill the space where your body was. And in a quiet city block, that crack carries far enough for people to look up and start searching for where it came from. You are not hard to follow. You never will be. You're 16 years old now, and a boy in your class has been watching you for 2 weeks with his phone pointed in your direction. You know he's been filming because you've seen the screen, and you know the video has spread because 3 days after it goes up, people 2 boroughs over recognize your face on the street and stop walking. Anti-mutant groups start leaving things outside your building, so to avoid the route on foot, you start jumping directly to school each morning, landing in the alley beside the entrance where you've stood enough times to know exactly what the ground looks like. Then, one morning, you misjudge the landing point by a few feet and end up inside a locked classroom instead of the alley outside it, with a teacher sitting at her desk on the other side, looking straight at the cloud of smoke hanging where you just appeared. She calls the front office before you can say anything, so you need to get out before security arrives, and the only way out is another jump. You land on a fire escape 3 blocks away with your back against the railing. A moment later, a police car rolls slowly down the street below, with both officers looking up at the buildings around them, trying to follow the smoke trail you left across 2 city blocks. That's when you understand the full problem. Every jump you make leaves a path that anyone can follow. A line of smoke clouds spaced out across rooftops and alleys pointing straight to wherever you landed. So staying still is the only way to stop being tracked. You sit on that fire escape for 4 hours with your legs pulled in and your hands flat on the metal, not jumping, because every jump is a sign saying here, this way, keep looking. You need help, and you need it before someone following that trail actually finds you. You're 19 years old now, and you find the Xavier Institute the same way most mutants do, by following a name passed between people who needed somewhere to go. When you walk through the gate for the first time, a man near the entrance looks up at you and waves without flinching or stepping back. And that's the first time that has happened with a stranger in 3 years. Training starts the next day, and the first thing they tell you is that your range is larger than most teleporters they've worked with, which sounds like a good thing until the first real lesson makes clear that it isn't. A trainer takes you to an unfamiliar building on the grounds and tells you to jump to the east exit, a door you've never stood in front of and can't see from where you're standing. You need to get there, so you jump anyway. You land with both shoulders wedged inside a structural beam, with the steel pressing in from both sides, and your arms pinned at an angle they're not supposed to reach. The force of pushing back out drops you to the floor, with both arms shaking too hard to push yourself up. The trainer writes it down without saying anything. That's the rule you already knew, but now understand in full. You only jump to places you can see or have been before, because your power moves you, but it does not check what is already there. Then, a week later, you trip on a staircase and jump in a panic, and you arrive at the landing already falling, hitting the floor at full speed, with your collarbone cracking on impact. The jump pulled you out of the fall and dropped you straight into a different one. So that's 2 lessons in 2 weeks. Your power can put you inside solid objects, and it keeps whatever speed your body already had when you left. You're 23 years old now, and your first real mission is a civilian extraction from a building under Sentinel patrol on the east side of the city. The plan is straightforward. You jump in, grab the civilian, jump out. You've drilled this exact sequence at the Institute dozens of times, so you jump into the stairwell you've been shown in the building layout, grab the civilian's arm, and jump both of you out to the street corner 2 blocks away. But the moment you land, the civilian's arm pulls away from yours, and she drops to one knee with her shoulder sitting at the wrong angle, with her other hand pressing against it, and her mouth open. The jump yanked her through the brimstone dimension, which is the space between where you left and where you arrived, and no human body is built to travel through it. The rotational force of passing through that space dislocated her shoulder on the way out. You need to fix it before anyone sees you both on the street, so you set the joint yourself in an alley 2 doors down, with the civilian sitting against the wall and her eyes fixed on you the whole time. Back at the Institute, the debrief adds something you weren't told before. Every person you take through a jump experiences the brimstone dimension for a fraction of a second, just long enough for their brain to register total darkness closing in from every direction and a pressure that pushes against their chest and arms. Most people who get pulled through describe it afterward as the worst moment of their life. That's the cost of taking a passenger. You move instantly. They go through something else entirely. So from this point on, every person you carry is someone you are also putting through that. And you don't get to warn them first, because there is never enough time. You're 28 years old now, and chain porting is what the older X-Men call it, when you jump more than 6 times in a row during a single operation, pulling people out one by one without stopping between jumps. It works. It also costs more than anyone told you up front. After a sequence of rapid jumps, your hands shake for about an hour. Your spatial awareness gets blurry around the edges, so distances start to look wrong. And a specific kind of pressure builds behind your eyes that only goes away after you sleep. You learn to manage it the same way you learned everything else, by running into the limit hard enough to know exactly where it is. Then, a collapsing building on the west side of Manhattan needs 12 people pulled out across 2 floors. And you take the job, because you're the fastest option within range. You get 11 people out clean, with each jump landing in the open street outside, so the people you carry hit solid ground with their feet already under them. Jump 12 puts the last person down on the pavement, with his knees buckling from the brimstone pass-through, but he stays upright. So you go back in for the 13th, a woman trapped under a section of fallen ceiling on the 4th floor, a floor you've only seen in the building layout, and not with your own eyes. You need to reach her fast, so you jump to the closest point you can picture clearly, the doorway of the 4th floor stairwell, and then move toward her on foot through the rubble. You grab her arm and jump out. But on the way back, you miscalculate your landing point by 4 feet, so you arrive with your hip and left leg inside a concrete support column, with the material pressing in hard on both sides. You have 1 second to fire another jump before the column closes around you completely. So you do, and you pull free, leaving the heel of your boot fused into the concrete behind you. After that operation, you set a limit for yourself. 10 jumps per mission. You write it down, and you keep it on you, because no one else is going to set it for you, and you now know exactly what happens when you go past it. You're 34 years old now, and a building collapse in the Bronx has 43 people trapped across 2 floors with a gas line cracked open somewhere below them, making every minute on the ground count. You have a 10 jump limit. You set it yourself. You keep it written on a card in your jacket pocket, and you know exactly why it's there. So you jump in anyway, because you're the fastest option, and the gas line doesn't care about your limit. Jumps 1 through 9 go clean, with each person landing on the street outside, with their knees bending and their hands hitting the pavement, all of them going through the brimstone pass-through and coming out the other side, shaking but alive. Jump 10 gets a man out with a dislocated shoulder that you straighten against a parked car before going back in, because there are still 33 people left, and the floor above is starting to drop. By jump 17, your hands are shaking between jumps, so your grip on each person takes a second longer to lock in. By jump 24, your spatial awareness has started pulling left, so your landing points are drifting a few feet from where you're trying to put them, making people hit the pavement at an angle instead of straight down. But you keep going, because 33 people becomes 20, then 12, then 4, then 1. Jump 43 is a girl on the 14th floor in a room you've never been inside and can't see from the stairwell door, so you grab her arm and jump blind. You arrive. She's there. You grab her and jump for the street. You land inside the exterior wall of the 14th floor, with the concrete and rebar pressing in around your chest and both arms, and the girl standing 2 feet away in open air with your jacket sleeve in her hands, where it tore free on the way through. The wall doesn't move. That's the rule. It never did. She tells the story for the rest of her life. You made 43 jumps. Nobody with your power had ever made 43. And the only reason the 43rd one killed you is that you'd already used up every version of yourself that knew where the walls were.